Marvel Rivals has taken the world by storm. It's raised the banner, calling Marvel fans to come and play a game that's been a thorn in the side of games like Overwatch and Call of Duty. Now you may think this is a strange way to start a video where I name more and more characters as puns, and you're probably right. And so I'll stop. But seriously, this game is fantastic. Okay, now I'm done. But it's caught the attention of many, including this guy right here. For those of you that don't know, this is James Gunn.
Luck, Mr.
Gunn.
James
Gunn. He's the guy that made the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and he's also in charge of all of the DC projects now. Recently, he said that he'd be open to a DC Marvels type game, which would make sense because it's actually gotten people back into Marvel. Now, I think it would be wishful thinking to expect this to happen, at least anytime soon. But hey, the options are pretty scarce right now if you're wanting to play as your favorite DC
hero or villain, I'm not judging,
all together in one game. Really, those options are some LEGO games, which are pretty fun. And you also have the Injustice games, which are just like Mortal Kombat. But with James Gunn talking about being open to a DC Rivals type game, I figured why not make a video on what some of the characters would be if they were to actually release a game like that. Here are a few ideas, and obviously they're my opinions, and I would love to hear all of your thoughts and opinions. But with that being said, let's get into it. Now when you think of DC Comics, most likely Batman will be the first hero that comes to mind. So in this hypothetical DC Rivals game, I think he would definitely be a DPS. He could have a playstyle similar to Spider-Man where his mobility could rely on his ability to swing around, but I think he's more similar to Moon Knight with his gliding around and throwing moonerangs. He'd also have gadgets that could open up a lot of possibilities, not just for Batman, but for characters like Robin, Nightwing, Batgirl. Maybe you could even throw Alfred in there.
Master Bruce, Miss Gordon, I see you've discovered our little secret. Yes, I admit it. I am Batman.
It's all right, Alfred.
Very good, sir.
Now we also have Superman, who I think most would say is a tank. Since he can fly, I think it would be interesting to see how a flying tank would play out, because as of right now, there hasn't been a flying tank in Rivals. They could just throw a curveball and make Superman a DPS, kind of like how they did with Wolverine, where you would have expected Wolverine to be a tank with his abilities, but he's technically a DPS that plays like a tank. Superman's laser vision could play out a lot like Iron Man's Unibeam. He also has his Frost Breath, that could be like Luna Snow's freezing ability. He can basically do it all. Now you could have a character with a kryptonite power to counter Superman, which would be a perfect ability for someone like Lex Luthor, maybe.
You are my nemesis. You're the Superman to my Lex Luthor.
You want to be Lex Luthor?
Yeah. Lex Luthor is rich.
In the first Injustice game, Lex has an exoskeleton suit similar to Penny Parker. Now imagine him throwing down some kryptonite mines. Man, those things are annoying. Another popular hero is the Flash, who would be a DPS like Black Panther or Iron Fist, where they're so quick and a nightmare for the backline to deal with. His ultimate would be something like Storm's, where he creates a huge vortex that just wreaks havoc on everyone caught in its path. Kinda like this. Now we gotta throw more villains in the mix, and so Bane would be a pretty awesome character. This dude has got healer written all over him.
What?
Just kidding. This dude is as much of a tank as any character. He's very similar to Hulk and could be set up in the exact same way, where you spawn in as a little guy like Bruce Banner and then ult up with his Venom to the size of the Hulk, and then have another ult after that. In Injustice, he has a move where he just charges at you, just like how the Thing does. Now healers might be tricky like it is for Marvel characters, where there's an abundance of DPSs or duelists, and only a handful of healers. But like I mentioned before, you could have gadgets that provide some flexibility, so you can have a character like Robin, with a kit similar to Rocket's where he could use a bat gadget to provide healing and boosts to other characters. And Robin would be small and agile, obviously not as small as a raccoon. But you could definitely get a healer out of the Batman characters. Similar to the Batman family, there's also the Lantern Corps with their different lantern colors. You could have a Green Lantern in the game as a DPS or tank, but you could also get other heroes from different cores to be a healer too. Another healer that might be a little out there is the Riddler. All because he reminds me of Loki. Maybe it's the green outfit and the staff, or the fact that he's a little trickster, but it would be tricky because he doesn't have any powers. Wonder Woman would be a great tank. She's right up there with Superman in terms of strength, and she also has those fancy silver bracelet things that block damage. She can also fly, so that would be another flying tank, but she also has her lasso that could be like Bucky's ability to pull players in. Deathstroke could be a DPS like Magic or Psylocke with his guns and swords, and I could also see him being a tank as well. You also have the Green Arrow, which would obviously play like Hawkeye. Deadshot could be like Black Widow, but with more guns. And we can't forget to mention the Joker. DPS is probably the best fit, and personally, I would like to see him fight similarly to how he fights in Injustice. He's got that move where he charges at you and just beats you without mercy, kind of like how Wolverine does. The Martian Manhunter reminds me a lot of Scarlet Witch. I could see him as a healer or a flying DPS, or flying healer. Aquaman is basically Namor, but I think he could have a twist and maybe be a healer. Shazam and or Black Adam would be a DPS or even a tank. You could also have one of the siblings as another character in a needed role. Brainiac could either be a healer or a tank. He kind of reminds me of Ultron, and I've heard rumors that Ultron is potentially going to be a healer when he comes to Rivals. Speaking of healers, I think Poison Ivy could be a Mantis kind of healer because of the plants. Cyborg could play like the Thing, where he just charges at you and hits like a tank. He could also be a DPS, where he transforms into a turret.
Birch church a church, ka-ding ding church.
Pack it up, pack it in.
And his ultimate could be something like the ultimate pulse that Iron Man does. You know who would be a really interesting character? Clayface. Clayface would be a really interesting character because he has that ability to do what Loki does and take another character's identity.
Identity theft is not a joke, Jim. Millions of families suffer every year.
But you could also make him a tank so that when he takes someone else's identity, he would be a tank version of whatever character he is. Now, if you grew up when I did, you would rush home from school in order to make sure that you didn't miss the latest episode of Static Shock. I would love to fly around in the air and just zap everyone with him. There's also Catwoman that can be a DPS like Iron Fist or Black Panther, where she's quick and hard to get away from. The last hero that I would absolutely love is my personal favorite, Batman Beyond. With his invisibility and the ability to fly and his suit that makes him stronger, he would be just like if Iron Man and the Invisible Woman had a baby. But I don't know how you would balance that. I would have a really hard time deciding between Batman Beyond and Static Shock in terms of who's my favorite. Looking at this list, I think the Batman characters take a lot of the spaces on this list for both heroes and villains, but there certainly is a gold mine of characters if a DC Rivals game ever happens. Heck, you could even make the story based on the Crisis on Infinite Earths storyline. There are a lot of different locations that would be cool to see, like Themyscira, Metropolis, Gotham, or even Mars would be awesome. Hopefully this happens one day. There are a lot of characters that I didn't mention, and I would love to do a part 2. I would also love to hear what you think and what you agree with, but more importantly, what you disagree with. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one.
Birch church a church, ka-ding ding church.
Pack it up, pack it in. Let me begin.